So our next speaker is Rachael DeWitt. Before Rachael came to Scripps, she worked as the executive director of an NGO in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York, where she focused on the conservation of freshwater resources. She came to the MAS program to fulfill her dream of working in marine conservation with coral reefs. Throughout the past year, she's been working to build her skill sets in coral reef ecology by working with Dr. Stuart Sandin's lab in support of the 100 Islands Challenge. Her presentation today is called Voices of the Reef, Weaving Together Traditional Stewardship and Science to Protect Palau's Coral Reefs.
Thank you, Samantha, for that introduction. A few years ago, a group of Scripps scientists traveled to the Cook Islands, where they were welcomed by a chief who told them that 14 different researchers came here last year, but they only ever heard back from one of them. This is a problem that coral reef communities are facing around the world. Scientists show up, collect data, leave, and sometimes never return the data back to the communities from which they were collected from. This is a problem that I can relate to, and one that I faced in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region. Prior to coming to Scripps, I worked as the executive director of a lake association where we had many different scientific groups collecting data on our lake. This helped us implement conservation efforts. However, one group offered to place a monitoring buoy in our lake and said that we would get the data back after that season. When the season ended, we never saw the data, and the scientific group said that if we wanted to see the data, we would have to pay $1 million a year for it, and we would have to pay that money before they would put the buoy back in the lake. I can relate to the frustration that these communities must feel and the mistrust they must have as well. I came to Scripps to do something about this problem. When I arrived at Scripps, I was quickly introduced to the group, the 100 Island Challenge. This is a group that was started by the Smith and Sandin labs. Their mission is to describe the variation of coral reefs around the world. With novel camera equipment and state-of-the-art imaging technology, they are able to take thousands of images of a coral reef and stitch them together into a 3D model. When I first met this group, it became clear to me that their mission was not solely collecting scientific information, but it was also returning that information back to communities and partnering with the communities, NGOs, and reef managers to do so. It was from that moment that I knew I wanted to be a part of this project. And so I developed a story map for my Capstone project. This story map serves as a communication tool for the nonprofit One Reef and the Hatahobe community located in Palau. This project aims to return the data to the Hatahobe community, increase community accessibility to coral reefs, and highlight traditional science and traditional stewardship and science. There are many aspects of my project, but today I'm going to tell you about 3 things: partnerships, interview videos, and 3D models that are featured in the story map. Palau as a nation stood out in their ability to complete ocean conservation and their long-term investment in traditional stewardship. Palau is located east of the Philippines and north of Indonesia. The main island of Babeldab is approximately 400 miles north of Toby Island and Helen Reef. These islands are very remote, and to travel to them takes approximately 2 days' journey by boat. And as a result, most Palauans have never traveled to these regions. The Hatahobe community is located mainly on the island of Toby, and the island is very small. It's approximately 0.32 square miles. The Hatahobe community is intimately connected with their reef resources as well as ocean resources beyond the reef. They're an exemplary community who has protected their reefs for generations. They use traditional stewardship,
which is applying the knowledge that their ancestors have gained from living together in harmony with their environment for generations. Traditional stewardship is woven into the fabric of their identity. An example of traditional stewardship is the ability of chiefs on Toby to implement a bull, which translates roughly to a moratorium. It can be placed on a resource that is becoming scarce or on a given area. So for example, it can roughly translate to a marine protected area today, except that a bull can be lifted after the resources are replenished. One Reef is the nonprofit that acts as the link between the Hatahobe community and the 100 Island Challenge. They have an ambitious goal to protect 1 million acres of coral reefs, and they help connect communities who protect their reefs to tools and resources to do so. They are the vehicle by which science is brought to these communities. Together with the Hatahobe community and the 100 Island Challenge, they have invested in trainings where they have taught communities to use the 100 Island Challenge equipment to collect images of the reefs themselves. Beyond the partnerships featured in the story map, I also created interview videos. In this video, you will meet Wayne Andrew, who is a member of the Hatahobe community and a staff member of One Reef.
Hi, my name is Wayne Andrew. I'm from Palau. I'm from the remote southwest islands of Palau. I grew up on Toby. During my childhood days, I remember going fishing on a daily basis with my elders, learning so many fishing techniques, as well as the role of ocean stewardship.
I made this video to show the intimate nature of the Hatahobe community with their environment and the role of traditional stewardship. The full-length video can be found within the story map online. The next video features the perspective of Dr. Stuart Sandin. In this video, he discusses the 100 Island Challenge and the nature of their work in Palau.
The coral reefs of the Republic of Palau have factored very heavily into the 100 Island Challenge. The main island has some of the most spectacular coral reefs that remain on the planet, places that are coveted by dive tourists. But there are other islands down to the southwest that make up some of the more remote, fascinating examples of what can exist on coral reefs today. Our team has worked there a number of times. We've worked on the ecology of the reefs, sampling them, and at this point we have 8 islands of the 100 Island Challenge represented in the Republic of Palau.
I made this video to describe the scientific involvement of the 100 Island Challenge in Palau. Dr. Sandin goes on to explain the importance of partnerships, the value of traditional stewardship, and collecting data. In addition to partnerships and interviews, I made 3D models of coral reefs. These models help visualize the coral reefs, demonstrate change through time, and allow communities to see what is happening to their reefs. In this 3D model, you can see red shows a coral that was present in 2014 but is no longer present in 2017. Blue shows the growth of corals over a 3-year time period from 2014 to 2017. And white-gray shows corals that were present in both 2014 and 2017. For example, this coral, the white-gray area, shows how large that coral was in 2014, and the blue halo around it shows how much that coral grew by 2017. Another interactive feature of the story map also uses the 3D models. The viewer of the story map can use the slider bar to move across an image of a coral reef and see how that reef changed over time. The numbers on the side of the story map demonstrate to the viewer what coral is present and how that coral changed through time. For example, coral number 1, Echinoptera, grew from 2014 to 2017. But there was a coral present under number 5, that's an Acropora table, that disappeared entirely from 2014 to 2017. These visual tools help communities see what's happening to their reefs without even having to get in the water. If you want to learn more about the story map, you can go to the link on the right side of the screen or scan the QR code. There are many more aspects of the story map that you can see online, including Palau's marine conservation ethic, changes to Palau's coral reefs, and reef resiliency. You can also take a virtual dive on coral reefs around Toby Island and Helen Reef. And the last story you can learn about is traditional stewardship today and how that has protected one of the world's largest coral reef atolls. When I think back to the situation I faced on Skinny Atlas Lake, I wanted to have the best knowledge possible to be an advocate for protection and a voice for the lake. This project for my capstone helped me see what effective conservation looks like and how that can be carried out from start to finish. I learned that partnerships are key to conservation success, and this can be seen through the 100 Island Challenge, One Reef, and the Hatahobe community. I learned that coral reefs are dynamic, and it's important to understand these changes. Combining traditional stewardship and science can be a way to provide a holistic approach to understanding these dynamic ecosystems. Science communication and data sharing is also very important and can help put information into the hands of the coral reef communities who can do something about it. These 3 factors are paramount to perfecting coral reefs and enabling communities to have a well-rounded knowledge of their ecosystems and be a voice for the reef when advocating for management and protection. Thank you. And I would also like to thank my Capstone Committee, the 100 Island Challenge, One Reef, and MAS MBC staff. These partnerships truly show how much can be done when we work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. So I've heard that Palau recently closed 80% of its exclusive economic zone to fishing. Has this placed added fishing pressure on the reefs there?
Yes, actually, as of January 1st this year, that closure came into effect. And we have seen recent changes to fishing on the reefs. And this may have changed due to the impact of the coronavirus because there are less tourists in Palau at the moment. But what we were seeing in the first 2 months of this closure was added fishing on the reefs for grouper, snapper, and parrotfish. So this is an unintended consequence of the implementation of this closure, but is something that Palau should consider as they continue to protect their ocean resources.
Great. And then we have a question from Emily in Seattle, Washington. Have you been able to share your story map with the Palauans yet? Have they returned feedback?
Yes, I have. I actually shared this with the One Reef group and their team in Palau. They are already using this product to advocate for funding to the MacArthur Foundation, and they are planning a trip to the aquarium in Palau where they can allow high schoolers to interact with this visual tool.